Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds, where you can find quality content for the game Last Epoch. We work hard here at Epic Builds and would appreciate a comment and a like, as that's the best way to tell YouTube we are doing a good job. All of these builds are homegrown, no save file editing, no deception, no underperforming setups, just epic builds. Cue the video. In today's video topic, we're going to be going over Dhemit's Poison Stormcrows. So this was a request from a viewer by the name of Dhemit. He was like, hey, I want to see Poison Stormcrows work. Can you make them work? And I'm like, all right, we're playing it. So normally I like to do viewer request builds, and if you know me and my history, I really do not like companions, and I still don't like them necessarily, but they're a lot better now. And why is that? Well, so for Stormcrows specifically, they're very squishy, or at least they used to be, because they had no legitimate sources of sustain. Sure, you had leech and all that, like with like crit and leech and mini health regen, but it wasn't enough to keep their very low life pools very well. And if you're focusing on minion crit and damage, that was survivability that you weren't focusing on, i.e. like base stacking so that they have flat HP, right? So it's either you went all into offense and your crows, you know, always always died all the time, or you built into base stacking and you didn't have enough sustain to keep those high life pools topped off. Because if you have a really high life pool, but you don't have a way of sustaining said life pool, there's no point in having it, right? Well, this build is built around the interaction between Stormcrows and Aspect of the Viper. So Aspect of the Viper is a buff that gives you a 100% chance to poison, 100% increased poison damage over time, and then of course 50% poison effect. And this can be increased by Aspect of the Viper effect. This also applies to your companions too. So all the Stormcrows, they get all that global chance to poison, and it all works with all of their damage inside their tree. Stormcrows can do a lot of damage thanks to all the more damage multipliers in their tree, and apparently the 25% chance to chain node is enough for clearing monoliths once you have enough damage. So the issue was, even if you did do this, you would have no way of sustaining your crows like HP pools. But now there was a unique added into the game called Lethal Concentration. So this is a two-handed javelin base. It's like a pole arm, pretty much. It's just a fancy word for it's just a pole arm. But the most relevant line of text, because this is meant for rogue skeletons, but it has one very relevant line of text. 8% of minion poison damage leeches life. And that allows our Stormcrows to tank literally almost everything in the entire game so far. I've gotten it to empowered monos, and the only thing I've seen crows die to now are, I believe, bleed raptors. And if you know how dangerous bleed raptors are, then you probably understand why they die to bleed raptors. But I've tanked Oribus meteors, necrotic dragon breaths, necrotic dragon explosions from Reign of Dragons empowered. I also tanked diamond matron beams. Like these guys, like I can literally leave them alone and they'll sustain themselves. I don't have to babysit them. They're not like other minions in that regard, thanks to how tanky they are. They do so much damage. You can literally run through monoliths, not do anything, and they're an absolute breeze. So I believe that this is the best way to build Stormcrows right now, at least in my opinion, as it's like obviously making, like they do damage, you tank, and along with everything else in this build, like it's just so much fun in comparison to like having your Stormcrows always die. You never have to deal with the companion mechanic because guess what? Your Stormcrows never die. So we're going to get into the game here, shall we? Alright, here we are in the game with the build. The name is Aspect of the Viper is GG, meaning the Aspect of the Viper is carrying us. So the idea with these Stormcrows mainly is we're utilizing Aspect of the Viper to do all of our damage. So let me get the Aspect of the Viper here, put up a Frenzy Totem as well. And as you can tell, the damage gets kind of dumb later on. Let me do that. Yeah, we're getting to dumb amounts of damage, like 700,000, 800,000 poison DPS. That's pretty good, that's pretty good. So we're going to get into the skills here. We have a 24 Stormcrow. Now, you don't need a 24 Stormcrow. I have a +2 from my armor and +2 from Raven's Rise. You do not need 24. You only need 22. If you only have 22, take 2 points out of Murder of Crows, and the build still functions. You deal just a little bit less damage. The only reason I'm using Raven's Rise is because of the minion movement speed, as they move pretty fast and make monolith clearing pretty fast, right? And the +2, obviously, and the less damage taken. So this is not necessary. So 24 is not necessary at all. So we take 2 points travel into Avis for movement speed and cast speed, which applies, its damage. 1 point into nimbleness travel, 2 points into shredding beaks, 4 points into huntsman. Your melee hits have a 20% chance of granting more damage, and it stacks up to 3 times. So you can get 180% more damage from this. So we want to be attacking the enemy, especially single target with our Surf and Strike to get the more damage. Then, of course, 5 points in the Murder of Crows for damage per crow. We have 5 crows. We deal 100% more damage thanks to this node. 2 points travel into Shatterbolt, just 10% more damage and travel. 1 point into Storm Breath. This does nothing for us. 2 points travel into Fulminating Cod. This does nothing for us as well. And then 5 points into Thunderstruck. So the biggest issue with crows is, since their lightning bolts are only single target hitting lightning bolts, what happens is your clear kind of suffers as a result. Thankfully, Thunderstruck is good enough for clear. It's not like the best thing ever, but it functions. And that 25% chance doesn't seem that good until you start realizing that all of your crows are attacking very fast per second, as I'll show you. And pretty much it just means that you're always at least getting 1 or 2 chains, which is pretty good. That's good enough, I believe, for Stormcrow specifically, right? And that's it for Stormcrow's tree. Now for Surf and Strike, this is your stereotypical utility Surf and Strike tree. You mainly just want the dodge, because extra dodge is like whatever. The attack speed, you want the attack speed mainly, so it's very easy to weave in attacks. And of course, this is the main reason why you're running Surf and Strike over like Swipe or something, because of the 24% coal. As you can tell in the footage earlier, that 24% coal is absolutely busted for bossing. So this build is amazing at bossing. Then for Maelstrom, we're actually using it for part of our sustain package. We're casting it from Warcry. We take 3 points into Whirlpool, 3 points into Sleet-Footed. The dodge doesn't really matter. After all, the dodge nerfs, mainly the dodge potion nerf. So it's kind of hard to get to max dodge. So it's not really worth it going into dodge anymore as a Beastmaster. But it's just extra, chance to not get hit. 4 points into Calm for mana efficiency. 3 points into Arctic Chill for the chill paints per second. This is the most important part, healing wins. You heal 6 per second. We get up to like about 8 Maelstroms. So this is about like 48 extra healing per second. And if we look over here, we actually get about 138% healing effectiveness. You'll have much more if you have perfect idols. So you're going to get a lot of healing because this is per Maelstrom. And of course, we have 1 point into Power of the Storm, because we want to hit things to proc aspect of the Viper. We have a 27% chance on hit, so as we're moving through monoliths, this allows it so that we don't have to actually hit things with Surf and Strike to kill them as we're moving through monoliths, because if you didn't know, you do need to hit things to get aspect of the Viper up, so it's kind of convenient to have that. Then of course for Warcry, it's your stereotypical Warcry setup. The more important things to be noting here is that we actually can cleanse ailments on our birds now, which makes it a lot easier for them to tank stuff like poisons, which is very strong. Then, of course, we also make it so we heal our allies as well, which is nice, because healing our allies is nice because it's just extra sustain for our birds. And, of course, we just grab the haste and all that. One thing you could do with this build is try to cram in as much movement speed as possible. You could probably dump the Healborian armor once you get Fizz Res from Herot, the blessing from Herot, the Empowered Blessing. I only have Cold Res, but you can get Fizz Res and then move this to a 10% movement speed base and get more movement speed there. You could always dump stuff like Frenzy Totem. It's not too necessary, and run like a Tornado on autocast. There's a few things you can do to make this build faster, but this is what I'm doing, is I'm just getting haste on hit and just running this. So I just get haste for a little bit while I'm moving through monoliths, because you don't want to move too fast because your Stormcrows never kill anything that way, but you don't want to be too slow because otherwise you never, actually, do anything. So that's good to note. And of course, for Frenzy Totem, this is actually really strong for us, one of our best single target DPS additions, because we get so much Frenzy effect thanks to Symbol of Selfishness, as this will get us up to 70% Frenzy effect, which will be about like almost 35% increased cast speed. We also have the Venomous Intent here for global poison chance. Right now, with Aspect of the Viper up, we are getting to 193% chance to poison with our birds. So this will bring us up to 250% pretty much. So Venomous Intent is very strong for us. And then that's pretty much it for the skills. Now for the passives here. So our birds, they scale their base HP. I have to show you here. They scale their base HP off of attunement and strength. As you can see there, we're getting an extra 300 HP from stat stacking, and we're at 664 as a base. And why that's so strong is because the more HP they have, the more of a pool they can leech from with lethal concentration, which is very strong. So back to passives here. So that's why we're doing a really weird tree, why we're focusing on natural attunement for the attunement, because that's for it's health per point. That's health per point for your Stormcrows as well. 6 points into Gift of the Wilderness for increased health and HP for them. 5 points into Berserker. So because we are playing an endurance-based class, we most of our DR and most of our like HP, we have a very low HP amount, but like our DR is huge, like our EHP. I don't have the endurance blessing from shamans, so that I'm not capped, but that's a lot of endurance threshold, and we have plenty more to get through when we're done with this as well. This is only going to be one video though, because I'm pretty much done with the build already. Normally I do 2 videos like I said, but the planner was down, so I wasn't able to make the first video, so we ended up just playing the build anyways. Then of course we take 5 points into Ancient Stones to grab a Tornado. I think it's better to grab the attunement for the HP, but so in the planner I do that, but I could probably respec into that. We actually don't need these points anymore, because I was using Tornado, but I stopped using Tornado because I wanted to go with the Maelstrom setup for the HP per second, as that was more superior in comparison. So we're actually going to take out of that, and then we're going to put it into Bark Skin instead. So you actually have the endurance, so you have more endurance. So Bark Skin's better. Then of course we could drop endurance on some pieces of gear eventually once we get the Shaman blessing for endurance. So that's pretty good as well. Then for Beastmaster, we take 8 points in the Earth Sign Strength, and it gives us DR while also giving our minions flat HP, so very strong. 4 points travel to Borhar for Aspect 4, 5 points of Porcine Constitution for more DR, of course. 3 points travel into Call of the Pact. It does give our minions flat HP, which is very strong, as I believe it's like, how much is it again? It's about 8 per point. So this is like a little bit more. I mean, this is like a little bit less than 1 stat point, but it's still a lot of HP, right? Then, of course, 8 points in the Chase. This is like one of the best nodes in the tree because it gives you insane amounts of movement speed and cast speed for your minions, which is what makes it feel so fluid in monoliths. Then 3 points into Primal Strength so that we actually get Aspect of the Boar effect on melee hit on targets, so that we actually get the DR while we're trying to kill things. You could probably put in 2 more points in this node. We don't actually attack that often with Surf and Strike, except for on bosses, so that might actually up our DR on single target, on just everything. And since it gives us strength, it's not like as if it's wasted points. Then we take 8 points into Life in the Wilderness for the get all the endurance threshold and the vitality as well. 10 points in Avian Shelter eventually. I have a little bit more Fizz Res than normal, and that's because I haven't swapped this to being an Ellie Res Amulet, which I do have in the planner. But right now we'd have that, so we don't need all 10 points into this, but the endurance threshold is very strong. The Fizz Res is very strong, because that in combination with a good chest will cap our res. And then, of course, like I said, you can always get the Herot blessing for Fizz res instead, and you'll be fine. 8 points into Aspect of the Viper. I found 8 points is plenty. You probably don't need more than this. You could probably shave it a little bit, but to be safe, I'm just going to keep it like this for now. Because we do get hits from our Warcry, we do get hits from our Maelstrom, we get hits from our Surf and Strike as well, so we're pretty much fine in that regard. Then we take 1 point into Force of Nature for an extra companion, because we can get up to 5, plus with Artors, which is very nice. And of course 10 points into Rattlesnake, which will increase the Aspect of the Viper duration, which makes so we have to attack that often, and also gives us poison effect, which is then multiplied by all of our Aspects of the Viper gear. So to note here, before we move on to the gear, you can specialize into wolves right now and get this node Pack Hunters, and it will give you an extra crow, which is a lot of damage. But this is a confirmed bug. I'm not using it because I don't showcase bugs in my videos to make sure that they actually last longer on YouTube, because there's no point in me making a video on a bug if it's just going to get changed later and then the video is worthless and it was a waste of time for me to make. But if you want to do it for now until they fix the bug, go right ahead. I don't know how you'd fit it in necessarily. You could probably fit it in with Surf and Strike and ignore Surf and Strike's Coal right here, right? And do a lot more damage. But like I said, that's really up to you. Now for items here, our best in slot item is Aspect of the Viper effect on the suffix, and then increased healing effectiveness on the prefix. The increased healing effectiveness applies to healing from Warcry and from Maelstrom. We also run Atera's Blessing on my bar, just so that I can Atera's Blessing myself, because our sustain isn't as good as our Stormcrow's sustain. We will die way before our Stormcrows die in most situations. So that's like part of the issue. And so I have Atera's Blessing. We don't need Maelstrom on the bar, so we could, obviously don't need to run it there. Then of course, for our helmet, this is the only what I would call quote unquote required unique, because our damage is a lot lower, our clear is a lot worse with just 4 crows, but you don't have to run it. But it's like later on, this is like exactly what you want. If you want to know where to farm this, I would go to the Black Sun and get echo modifiers with helmets. I got mine within 6 of them, which was very strong. There's only 22 different helmets, and this is a common base, so you'll see it very quickly if you just do a bunch of them, right? You should be completely fine on this. You shouldn't have any issues like just getting this done. Now, the second necessary unique, quote unquote, is lethal concentration. Lethal concentration is not required, but later on when you're doing empowered monoliths, you will definitely want this, as that 8% minion poison damage leeches health. That is very important for keeping your crows alive. Without this, your crows are glass cannons, which sucks, but it's just how the game is right now. To get lethal concentration, I would heavily suggest farming Reign of Dragons. Reign of Dragons has all weapon echoes, so it's a little bit harder, but there are only so many actually droppable unique polearms. I believe this is the second one. So I believe there's only 2 unique polearms to drop now that can actually drop, and that's not a boss drop, is this one, and then the other one, the Serpent Strike unique that you use to level. So you should, in theory, get this very quickly. It's very easy to farm. Like, even if it's like 1 in 3, that's still better than like 1 in 22, like Artor's Legacy. Then the other unique, I don't call this required, I call this quality of life, because in Empowered Monoliths, once you're stacking all of that crit chance, your birds will start getting crit and they'll start dying randomly. So this is a safeguard against that. Also, that 40% minion increase leech rate works on the leech from lethal concentration, making your birds even tankier. And where to farm this, it is a 50-50 drop from Fall of the Outcast in 58 or 100. So you just have to do this twice or a few times if you don't get Ribbons of Blood. Very easily farmable. The most rare piece is definitely going to be Raven's Rise. Raven's Rise is rare, but it's not necessary, like I said. So if you don't have it, don't sweat it. It actually makes your resistances easier. The only thing you're missing mainly is the +2, and of course the movement speed. The movement speed is really nice, trust me, don't get me wrong. But like, it's not what I would call necessary. Now for our amulet, we just want the minion damage, minion health, and then on my planner, I believe I have poison res and frailty. For bosses, obviously, you want the poison res as well. So I have no poison res yet. Now, this chest, other than the fact that it's on a Healborian base, and you could probably get away with a wild armor base later on once you get a better blessing from Kirot, this is like absolutely perfect. Like, obviously, it's only T3 aspect of the Viper effect and like T3 on all the other stuff, but like the +2 Stormcrow is insane. We actually don't get that much increased minion damage on our build because we're stacking the flat stacks. So getting increased minion damage where you can is very strong. So we can increase our single target. But like you said, like I showed you, 700,000 is not that bad. Then of course for the belt, minion health, minion damage, then HP. The ring, you can go with a silver ring base if you want speed, or you can go with the vitality ring base for HP. It's either way works. You can always use the necrotic res ring too once you swap over to the Ellie res amulet later on. The health, the flat attribute is very important because the more flat attributes you get, the better, but it's not better than an increased minion health roll, so you kind of want to like balance that. You want one flat stat, because you can use attunement or strength. You want to prioritize strength because it increases your armor. But either way, both of them work. There's like no like, oh, I want more of this or more than that. They both are working the exact same for the build, so you can have either. And of course, endurance, and then probably poison res on this suffix. And of course, rise, then boots. I actually got a decent pair of boots for once. I'm amazed. This is you don't need T6 hybrid health, obviously. But the stats on this are perfect. Obviously, you'd want better rolls. But like, this is pretty much what you want. Probably maybe on the cold res one once you swap over to the lightning res amulet, but it depends. Then of course, Spirit Catcher is your best base. Then of course, a flat stat, minion health, endurance, and resistance. And then, like I said, the idols, just healing effectiveness, and the aspect of the Viper. And that's pretty much it for gearing as well. And that's pretty much it for the video. I plan on revisiting this concept, although what I really like about this concept is this part with the lethal concentration and just aspect of the Viper is universal. You can run this on any of the companions. You can run it on Raptor. You can run it on Summon Scorpion. You can run it on Summon Bear. Hell, you could even run it on, where is it? On Summon Spriggan. You can run this kind of setup on anything. You can run it on Wolves. It's just depending, like, this is a good base, quote unquote, of a build because you can use it on any companion you choose. I just chose Stormcrows because I've heard from a lot of people that Stormcrows are bad, and I could see why they think that, because without the proper sustain, they suck. But thanks to lethal concentration, that is no longer a problem. With that being said, thank you all for watching. Leave a like and a comment if you haven't already, if you've made it this far, as that really does help me out. With that being said, bye guys.